Greetings and good day to everybody. Hopefully, you all are doing very well today, reaching your highest level of mental, physical, and spiritual health. And we are so happy that you are here with us today to spend this hour for Hollywood and Destroying African Militancy, which is our 97th broadcast here for our ancestors' voices. So we're very happy that you are here to commemorate that with us and to share in this analysis. We start, as we always do, by honoring the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere, the people who were here thousands of years before there were DNA tests, before there was YouTube, before there was all of the lies that people unfortunately feel like they have to make because we as African people don't know our history and don't know who we are. So we feel like we have to make up an identity. So before all of those mechanisms, there were the indigenous people here in the Western Hemisphere. And this is their land, and they fight for their land back today in 2022 and beyond. And so we stand in solidarity with them for that just effort. Clearly, it's their land and they deserve to have it back. And along with that, of course, we honor our African ancestors who are the very reason that we live and breathe. And we apologize for those of our people who just don't know who we are and as a result, unwittingly disrespect our African ancestors who fought so consistently for our dignity. You know, we don't even understand what the word dignity means today, a lot of us. So we thank our African ancestors for giving us that gift. And we hope and pray that we can continue to carry on our fight in a way that represents the kind of dignity that they taught us in a manner that's acceptable to them. So we thank you all for being here with us for this presentation today. And we start, as we always do, with making our introductions for the day. And our Ancestors' Voices is sponsored by the All African People's Revolutionary Party. This is an All African People's Revolutionary Party program, and we're honored to speak to you from this wonderful platform. And the APRP is a revolutionary, independent, mass, Pan-African political party based in Africa. Our objective is Pan-Africanism, which we define correctly as one unified socialist Africa, one unified socialist Africa. And our work to achieve Pan-Africanism, or one unified socialist Africa, is outlined in Kwame Nkrumah's Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare that you see on the right-hand side. Kwame Nkrumah is the founder of the All African People's Revolutionary Party, the former president of Ghana, the former founder of the Convention People's Party, whose government was illegally overthrown on February 24th, 1966, by the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, or we call them criminals in action. And so in the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, Brother Nkrumah laid out the strategy to achieve Pan-Africanism, one unified socialist Africa. And he talked about how once Pan-Africanism is achieved, that is the objective which will bring about the fulfillment of all the dreams and aspirations of African people everywhere on earth, all 2 billion of us scattered in 120 countries. So that's why we want to achieve Pan-Africanism. And there on the screen, you have logos of some of the many political formations on the ground throughout the African continent who agree with the objective of one unified socialist Africa. So our work in the All African People's Revolutionary Party is to bring all of these formations together into one entity. And we do that work on the ground every single day. Last week, we announced that we are raising funds for one of our sibling parties in Africa, the Zimbabwe Movement for Pan-African Socialists. You see their logo there on the bottom right. And a number of you responded to that and you donated. And we were able to send them over $100 in donations this past Thursday. Now, they may have some difficulty because, you know, this backward U.S. government has sanctions against Zimbabwe. So we're still checking every day with the comrades there to see if they can pick up that money. And, you know, we will figure out a way, if they can't, to get it to them. But right now, it looks like they should be okay to be able to do that. So thank you for all who donated, and please continue to do that. We'll do that for a few weeks, and then we'll focus on another one of our sibling parties in Africa, because for us, Africa is primary, you all. It's the most important thing to us. So when Africa is free, we don't have to worry about what's happening in the United Snakes of America. That'll change overnight. So thank you for understanding that and contributing to our work to bring about Pan-Africanism. And Our Ancestors' Voices is hosted each week by all African People's Revolutionary Party organizers, myself, Jamu Umi, and my wonderful daughter, Shakura Umi, both of us active organizers within the APRP, and honored to bring this subject, how Hollywood is defanging the militancy of our movement, how Hollywood has its own agenda, and that agenda is to make money. And in order to make money, they have to uphold the corporate nature of how things are done in this society. And that does not jive with trying to bring about and listen to and advance a narrative of justice for the oppressed African masses and any other oppressed masses. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And to get us started, I'm going to transfer it over to Shakura.
Thank you so much. What's up, y'all? How y'all doing? So thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hopefully you all are in good spirits. If you are somewhere where you do not have access to power because of winter storms or anything like that, we're just thinking of you and hoping that you are finding a way to seek shelter so that you can remain safe, and hopefully you have what you need. And this is also a humble reminder that some of our comrades and families don't have shelter to find. And so just continuing to think from a humane standpoint about how do we acknowledge the fact that shelterlessness continues to be a problem in this backward system. And so the next time you find yourself at that stoplight where you see someone to your left, don't ignore them, because they deserve to be acknowledged as a fellow human being, but acknowledge them. Even if you have nothing to give, or even if you're not in a position to give just a simple nod or just a wave or I see you, just something to let them know they are there, they exist. I think that's really, really critical, instead of the Western backwards system teaching us that we should just ignore because it makes us uncomfortable. Being uncomfortable is a beautiful thing. Because when you're uncomfortable, that's when you're vulnerable enough to grow, because you're scared and you don't know what else to do. So I think we should continue to unpack that and think about that as it relates to not just the topic for today, but also what does it mean to understand that we live in a system that oppresses us, but we have the ability and the capable material and resources to push back and to fight against that. Okay, so we don't have to just accept that this is the reality. And there are people who are fighting back against that every single day. There are people whose lives have been taken because they have been fighting back against that. And so we remember our ancestors. We are our ancestors. We hope that we can be a fraction of our ancestors as we continue to do the work that they have literally laid out for us, path by path, step by step, stone by stone. And all we have to do is literally follow in their footsteps. So to be extremely clear, Hollywood today is still without question the primary propaganda mechanism for the US capitalist empire. Through its never-ending movies and television programs, content produced from Hollywood, Los Angeles, USA, provides imagery, analysis, fantasy, and role modeling to millions of people on Earth on a daily basis, 24/7, 365. The average cost for a movie today is upwards of $150 million. Through any model, that figure equates to the annual income of thousands upon thousands of people. In other words, Hollywood has been for decades and remains today the chief information source for certainly the majority of people in the United States and the entire planet. For the most part, people's perception of the police and military, for example, is widely shaped on the depictions of those institutions in movies and in television shows. Now, you may have already started zoning out and tuning me out just in the first 9 minutes that I've been talking, but I want to bring it back and give you the so what factor. Okay, so why should you care that Hollywood is exploiting and mentally raping you, as well as probably physically to some extent, and emotionally exploiting you and taking advantage of you, your well-being, your identity, your culture, all of that? Okay, the so what factor. The so what is that if we just talked about how this ideology is forming based on people's exposure to police and military from the same corporation that has continuously lied to us about everything. So this is the same corporation who made it possible for us to understand that Afghani families were having bombs dropped over them. This is the same corporation that made it possible for us to understand that any of our colonized family members, so folks in the Congo, folks in other parts of Africa, when Ghana was trying to fight for its independence, when all these other countries were fighting for their independence, people were killed because you're not supposed to stand up, and you're certainly not supposed to stand up against a system that is oppressing you. We see that not just in the US with Malcolm X and other ancestors that we look up to, but we understand that people have died for quote unquote doing the right thing. And in an unjust society, you're not supposed to stand up against the system. You're supposed to get in line, just like when you're in kindergarten and they teach you to literally walk in a single file line. That's essentially what you're supposed to do as an adult. You're supposed to get in line metaphorically and not push back against the system. And when you do push back against the system, you get attacked, you get killed, you get murdered, your family gets blown up. Something tragic happens to you where you might end up in a mental hospital if you survive the physical attacks, but emotionally and mentally, you'll be scarred for the rest of your life. So that's the same entity that produces these Hollywood films. And so it's very dangerous, comrades, for us to rely on them to teach us about police and military when I just gave you numerous examples about how they have discredit and distrust and why we should not be putting all our eggs in their basket. The point I'm making to you is this is why political education is so important, because if you rely on this system that literally lies to you every single moment. And the only reason, the only means to an end that you represent to this system is the dollars that are in your pocket. The very moment that you stop contributing to capitalism and you stop protecting private entities to manage their income, you are of no good to capitalism anymore, which means you are dismissed and you need to be gone. And I mean fatally be gone, but I also mean emotionally and mentally. You need to be gone, because you're either contributing and helping capitalism benefit and succeed, or you are tearing that sucker down and making it very difficult for capitalism to survive. So if you choose to believe this system that has poisoned you for thousands of years or 30 years or 52 years, however long you've been on this planet, then shame on you. Because that means you have the opportunity to learn what the truth is by picking up a book and reading about the Palestinians tell you that children are being persecuted right now on the Gaza Strip because they are throwing stones at police officers who are telling them that they have no place to be in Palestine. If you did any research, you would know that Israel and other police entities are being trained the same way police are here in the United States to brutally harass, attack, kill, murder, rape, and do everything possible to make people feel like they do not deserve humanity. Again, I raise the point that political education is the only way, which means if you are looking for the truth, why would you go to the liar who has been lying to you for thousands of years? My dad has given the analogy that would be the abused person going back to the abuser and saying, is there any way you can explain to me why I'm being abused? That is not the solution to the problem. So we have to look to our ancestors. We have to pick up books, family members. We cannot watch YouTube videos because YouTube is being produced by who? The same media corporations that are lying to us. That is literally like driving in a car on E with no seatbelt and no gas. Where are you going? Okay, we have to have a direction on where we're going. So it is important for us to increase our political education and to understand that the only way that Hollywood media is going to teach us about what they want us to know about is because they have control of the narrative. We need to eradicate that narrative and eradicate that control and make it so that we can understand what's happening, which means finding the truths that are not being shared in these backwards Hollywood productions that are coming out. So we understand that that's happening. And we also understand that it's going to be dangerous because some of us don't know how to do political education. We're scared, we're intimidated. Some of us don't even know how to read. Some of us don't have the education levels to where we can comprehend what we're reading. We understand all of that. And we have ways to work around that. We have work study groups where people can work with you and help you sound out words and comprehend what that means. This is why we promote work study, so that we can discuss these readings together. You're not alone, and you shouldn't have to comprehend the readings alone. But you are going to be held responsible when you have information that can lead you to truth, and you choose instead to follow the lies from the destructive path that is in front of you. That is what we will hold you accountable for. If you have a learning disability, or if you need help comprehending something, that's a different story. But when you choose to rely on capitalist imperialist media, shame on you. And don't be surprised when you continue to be ignorant, because they're only going to give you what they want you to know. That's the danger of it. At least if you do political education, you have the ability to decide what information you want to take in, because there's agency involved with that. And if you're a colonized person, then agency is not something that you are pretty familiar with, because a lot of that has been stolen from us. So we have to continue to remember that we should not get confused into believing that Hollywood is producing material that is objective and innocent. This is not to buy into the long-held conspiracy theories about deeply rooted agendas around mind control. There are plenty of productions being produced from Hollywood that promote positive messaging. The original Alien movie series, starting in 1979, boldly introduced a strong lead woman character and a strong women leaders, backed by a subtle yet present anti-corporate message. The original, quote, Night of the Living Dead, end quote, movie in 1968 introduced concepts never before seen in movies, such as the African lead character aggressively asserting their leadership over Europeans. There are many other such examples, but the point here is to illustrate that overall, by and large, Hollywood has served the purpose of ensuring that the dominant message, even when women and colonized people or non-binary folks are shown in semi-positive light, is to always make sure that capitalist power structure is upheld. The whole purpose is to protect capitalism. We must understand that, you all. We must understand that. The whole purpose is to protect that entity from operating. It's like an oil machine. It cannot stop. It must continue going, generating. It must continue. And you are a means to an end to make sure that that machine continues. When you die, they'll remove your carcass and put somebody else in that seat to make sure that machine keeps going. That's what it's all about. So we remember that, and we think about that, because that's helping us to understand that there are many other examples, but overall, that's the message, is to ensure that we continue to maintain capitalism. So when we think about that, we know that, in other words, there are examples of bad cops, for example, like, quote, Training Day, right? But overall, the fundamental messaging coming from Hollywood is that police and the US military are the good people, and that we are here to ensure capitalism is the only viable way of life, and we have to preserve that. That's the overarching message. And whether you can identify it in each movie or not, it's there. Trust and believe, it's there. You have to get really critical, and you have to start to really unpack these messagings to be able to actually identify it, because the training is so intricate, the training is so subtle, and the training is so delicate to our brains, because we are so familiarized with it that we won't even recognize when it's happening, which means we do not see it as a problem. And that right there is the most critical quagmire to even think about. Because if you don't even see it as a problem, this is why you keep going back to them, expecting them to give you truth, when all they've done is feed you lies and then convinced you that they are telling you the truth. That's what our comrade Kwame Ture said to us. So we have to think about that and remember to understand that we are here to ensure capitalism. That's what we're here to do, is to preserve that. Even if there's a bad apple like Denzel and, quote, Training Day, that's an abomination. And the Ethan Hawke character is there in that movie to represent the cop who, quote, upholds the system of injustice. The always subtle messages is that capitalism is always validated, and that there's no realistic suggestion to ever be made to leave that door open, that something beyond this empire is possible. Next slide, please. All right, so our particular interest in the evolution of African, or, quote, Black themed Hollywood productions over the last 50 years is particular. Originally, the explosion of African movies in the 1970s, known as Black exploitation, quote, movie area produced often crudely made movies. Average budgets of between a couple of $100,000 to a couple of $1 million that upheld many anti-African stereotypes. But these movies, heavily influenced by the Black Power movement, often showed uncontrolled African rage and organization against the power structure. Movies like, quote, Shaft, end quote, openly courted African revolutionary organizations, flawed as they were, as the winners in this movie. And this reality spread to even mainstream Hollywood movies like Clint Eastwood's, quote, Dirty Harry, end quote, movie series which depicted African militant community groups. The reality of the 70s is non-existent today. Even with African filmmakers and directors like Spike Lee, Ava DuVernay, and Regina King, the movies they are producing always go to great lengths to ensure any type of militancy that isn't checked and approved by who? The same power structure that we just talked about in terms of discredit and dehumanizing and devalued, okay? This is where that power structure is discredited, and it is completely ignored and written out in the script. So any truth, any justice, any humanity, those parts get omitted, okay? Those parts don't get included in the final copy that goes to production, okay? This is true even with the recent popular depiction of movies depicting actual historic events in our movements, such as Malcolm X, Selma, A Night in Miami, or Harriet. What we mean is the actual histories have been changed in these movies. So again, the lies are being fed to you as you eat your popcorn physically. You are also eating the lies mentally and spiritually and metaphorically. So the danger of that, when they are actually altering how things have happened and then giving you a new narrative and saying, yep, this is actually what happened. And if you don't know your history or your herstory or your theirstory, then you're going to say, wow, that is what happened. Meanwhile, the actual facts were written down and documented in a book, and we don't even think to pick that up. We don't think to pick up Malcolm X's autobiography, because why would Malcolm X know what actually happened, right? Okay, clearly I'm being sarcastic. Okay, so we're going on to think about that, and we're thinking about how dangerous that has been, because what that means is the actual histories of these movies have been changed. And when we previously stated the danger of this is that most of our people are not studying. So they don't even know to critique it and to know that it's flawed. They don't even see the problem with the lie that's being fed to them, okay? And so we're thinking about how independent Hollywood is of producing this. So in essence, Hollywood movies about our history have become the primary vessel for telling our story. Hollywood is explaining to us what African history is. I mean, you gotta put a blindfold on and shoot me in my back and then ask me why I put the bullet in the gun to believe that. Like, this is the most absurd thing. But this is what's happening every single day. Again, the danger of not knowing who you are means that anybody can tell you who you are, and all you can do is accept it, because you don't know. You don't know how to critique it. You don't know how to give truth. You don't know how to provide evidence to support that you actually know who you are. All you can do is take their word for it and be ignorant as you believe what they're saying. So as a result, the move to the right, you can see for many African people, either in West Europe or Africa, et cetera, should not be separated by the propaganda being generated from Hollywood that repeats the message that our own objective is the integration of our people into this capitalist system. Increasing political education is one way, but y'all, you have to join organizations that are working for justice, that have a political education component. I am not asking you to go read all the books on the AAPRP's work study list. I'm asking you to join an organization where other people are reading those books with you simultaneously, so you can discuss this together. I am not asking you to read all those books, because I'm not expecting you to fix this problem that we're in by yourself. So you might as well build an organization that's working for justice, develop a political education plan, read some literature so you can increase your knowledge and ideology, and then we can be ready to attack and take down any system that wants to step to us, because they don't know what we got coming. Join an organization working for justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Shakura. Ashe, Ashe. And I think what you said really made me want to start my piece by providing some basic context, because it never ceases to amaze me how little people understand about how this political and economic system actually works on a day-to-day basis. Like, if you just ask people, how does capitalism work? Well, first, they probably won't be able to even explain to you what capitalism is. But even if you go past through that, people don't understand how this system functions. So let's talk about that as it relates to the so-called entertainment industry. So if you think about movies and television, for example, how do you find out about those things? Well, they're advertised on TV, right? The way you find out about movies is they're advertised through, now increasingly social media, but the movie studios pay money to get the word out about their project. They pay money to get the word out about their television show, right? That's how you know about it. So who are they paying money to? Well, they're paying money to the entities that control the media platforms where you get the messaging. So these entities are private, capitalist, corporate entities. They're not paying money to people's organizations to get the word out about their project. So they're paying money to private, capitalist, corporate entities. That's where you see the commercials advertising the movie. The Super Bowl is going to be next week. They'll have movies advertised because that's the largest audience of any single program. So movies with large budgets always get that airtime during the Super Bowl. So who controls that airtime? The corporations who pay for the Super Bowl to be on the air. The US military that pays millions for the Super Bowl to be on the air. Coca-Cola, Ford, Toyota, Tesla, all of these multinational capitalist corporations pay for the airtime, you all. So these entities, obviously, it's not even debatable, have a vested interest in upholding capitalism because that's how they've made millions and billions of dollars. So they're not going to underwrite any project that speaks about capitalism being a bad thing and needing to be replaced with socialism or something else. They're never going to do that. That's why you never see any programming advancing that message. So let's just start there. And then from there, we'll give examples of what we mean. The subtle ways Hollywood influences us. The subtle ways Hollywood influences us. So one of the first ways that happens is they project the image that the capitalist system, the US government, the British government, the Zionist government of Israel, whichever one they're talking about, or all of them together, it doesn't matter. But those entities are always projected as being the primary protagonists for social change. So in other words, if there's some positive social change, the government is the source behind it. And that's the message that they promote in these productions. In other words, it's not a movement, it's not a people's movement that makes the change, it's the government that makes the change. I'll give you some quick examples. The movie Hidden Figures. Now, I love Taraji Henson. I love Taraji Henson to death. I'll watch anything that she's in, but it's objectively true. There's a scene in this movie where she is late to a meeting. Kevin Costner is her boss, I guess, and she's late to a meeting. And he's questioning why she's late in front of all these people. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And she explains to him, she's stressed to explain this, but she explains to him that because the bathrooms are segregated, she has to, walk a distance every time she has to use a restroom. And that's the reason why she's late. And the way this is presented in the movie, it's like, this is this major moral moment in the movie. And then Kevin Costner nods or does whatever the hell he does. And then the next thing you know, she can go use the bathroom wherever she needs to use the bathroom like everyone else. So the inference is that the European man corrected the problem and made it so that we would have justice. That never happened anywhere on earth. That's never happened. Any justice we have, we fought, bled, and died to get that justice. But because we don't study history, I don't care what you think, what you say, you're going to be subtly and unwittingly influenced when you watch a movie like that. And we know that that's true because people, like Shakur said, still have faith in the system. I mean, with what this system does to us every day, the only way any of us could have any faith in it still is because part of us believes these messages, that it's the system that's bringing this progress to us. Another example is in the movie Judas and the Black Messiah, the movie about the setting up of the FBI informant, William O'Neill, in the Illinois Black Panther Party and the subsequent setting up for the murders of Chairman Fred Hampton and Deputy Minister of Defense Mark Clark on December 4th, 1969. Great movie. And I will say this movie is one of the better one of these movies that I've ever seen. It's in the high tier of these movies, but it still had plenty of flaws because, again, they have a mission to project a message. And so the major flaw in this movie is they talk about, there's a scene where William O'Neill, the FBI agent that he reports to, was a man named Roy Mitchell. This is true, Roy Mitchell. And Roy Mitchell was a longtime FBI senior agent. In fact, he was the FBI agent responsible for the investigation of the 3 civil rights workers murdered in Mississippi in 1964, Goodman, Cheney, and Swarner. And Mitchell was responsible for that investigation. And as you know, as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, almost shortly before he was himself assassinated, 4 years after the 3 civil rights workers were assassinated, nothing was done on that investigation. I know the movie Mississippi Burning made it look like the FBI was the heroes, and a lot of people believe that because they don't know the actual history, but the FBI did nothing to bring those people to justice. In fact, there wasn't even a serious trial, even though the people that did it were known to everybody in Neshoba County, Mississippi. There wasn't even a serious trial against these demons until decades later. But yet in this movie, Roy Mitchell is portrayed as a moralistic man. And in the scene in the movie where he's being told about George Sams, who was another notorious FBI informant in the Black Panther Party, who got people killed, got Alex Rackley tortured and murdered in Connecticut. And the FBI knew it was George Sams because they placed him there, but yet they still arrested Erica Huggins, Bobby Seals, McGlucas, and the other Black Panther Party members, and engaged in a full-on trial to convict them, even though they knew it was their man that caused this murder. They knew that. But yet in this movie, Judas and the Black Messiah, Roy Mitchell is portrayed as being disturbed that George Sams was a FBI plant in the Black Panther Party. Roy Mitchell wasn't concerned about any FBI informant being a brutal beast and a terrorist in the Black Panther Party. He groomed William O'Neill to be a terrorist in the Black Panther Party. And if you watch the documentary, Eyes on the Prize, where the actual William O'Neill is interviewed in that documentary, he is so arrogant. He says in the documentary, I made a major contribution to the Black Panther Party. That's not my interpretation. He says that. Do the research and look at it yourself. That's what the man said. And that's because they believed that by destroying and destabilizing the Black Panther Party, they were doing the right thing. These people didn't care. They didn't have any moral issue with murdering Black Panther Party members. That's what they were there to do. But yet, if you look at that film, you would think, oh, the FBI had a moral approach to sabotaging our movement. You know, then in the Black Panther movie, the Marvel movie, they portrayed the Central Intelligence Agency man as the hero. He's the one that helps them save Wakanda and the vibranium or whatever the hell they were calling the natural resource in that stupid movie. And people see that, and the subtle suggestion is that the CIA can be the good guys. And anybody that knows anything about Africa and anything about criminals in action, the CIA knows that the CIA has always been nothing but the chief saboteur in Africa. No question about that. From its inception in 1948 through present day, that's the role it's played. And it's had a significant role in every major sabotage effort in Africa. The assassination of Patrice Lumumba, Maurice Mpolo, and Thomas Akoto, and the destabilization of the National Congolese Movement, CIA. The overthrow of Kwame Nkrumah's government in Ghana, CIA. The overthrow of Modibo Keita's government in Mali, CIA. The destabilization of the West African unification effort by Nkrumah, Sékou Touré, and Keita, CIA. The invasion by Portugal of Guinea in November of 1970, CIA. The CIA has played a major role in destabilizing Africa. And there's no way in hell you're going to tell me a CIA man can be a hero in any movie about Africa. But we don't study our history, so we see that, well, it could happen. I've had people tell me that. It could happen. It can only happen to you because there's poison air blowing between your ears. That's the only reason it can happen to you. There's no way it can happen in real life and in reality. Another way they influence us is the suggestion of, or just how they portray African revolutionaries. In every movie, African revolutionaries are always portrayed, or television show, as unstable people, as ruthless people, as inhumanistic people, as impatient people, as people you can't be trusted, volatile people, violent people. That's how they portray. I watched Car Wash the other day, the original Car Wash from 1976, a classic movie for African people. Bill Duke is in the movie as a worker in the car wash, and his name is Dwayne, but he's taken on a name of Abdullah. Now, of course, still in the capitalist system, he's still Dwayne, because that's their message to us, is that y'all ain't even serious enough about being African to take it to the full extent. So you don't respect it, so we don't have to respect it. So they keep calling him Dwayne, and I'm Abdullah, and he ends up trying to rob the car wash, and the brother stops him from robbing the car wash, and basically he's doing it because he's angry. So the inference is that revolutionary people are only that way because they're angry and they have psychological problems. That's how they portray it. Now, that's 1976. You fast forward to the Black Panther movie from 2018. And in that movie, Michael B. Jordan's character, Killmonger, ruthless, it was brutal, was physically violent with the women and the people who he's supposed to be there to serve, and is just angry. So there's this overwhelming theme that the only reason why you're revolutionary is because you're angry. And don't tell me people don't believe it, because I've dealt with that my whole life. People, well, I didn't, when they get to know me, I didn't know you were, this cool, this nice of a person. I saw you speak and I thought you were angry. They didn't just think that on their own. They've been influenced from the propaganda to believe that. That's by design, that's the whole point of it. Another way they influence us is to plant the seed in our heads that if we have the nerve to infuse any level of militancy in anything we do, we're going to pay a price. We're going to be killed or locked up in prison. No question about that. That ridiculous movie, Queen and Slim, was an excellent example. I mean, how sad was that movie? They're stopped by the police. The police are inappropriate, as they most often are. They blow the police away, as they should have, and they're on the run for the movie, and the African sells them out, and they're blown away at the end of the movie. Now, what other message is that portraying to you other than, if you stand up against the system, this is what will happen to you? The same thing is said in every movie that portrays revolutionaries. If you stand up, you will be dealt with. In other words, don't stand up against us, because you will die or be put in prison. And I always, like to think of the Night in Miami movie, the Regina King movie, because we think because an African is directing it or has some role in it, that means it's going to be okay. They have to do like you got to do on your job. You got to do what the master tells you to do on your job. You don't have full agency to do whatever the hell you want to do on your job. Well, why do you think it's any different for Spike Lee or Regina King or Ava DuVernay or whoever it is? They got to do the same thing. They don't have the money to make these films. They got to go through the same process I described to you in the beginning. They have to get corporate endorsement, and the corporations are not going to endorse something that portrays a message against their image. So those people capitulate. That's what they have to do, because they won't get their products out there if they don't do that. So I always go back to A Night in Miami. If you look at the credits when the movie's going off, they show you Sam Cooke. What happened to everybody? Jim Brown, Muhammad Ali. They tell you what happened to them after that night. And then when the Sam Cooke is next, and they say that he went on to start his own record company. That's great. But they don't even talk about what happened to Sam Cooke. Sam Cooke was shot and killed in a hotel in December 1964. And he was shot and killed by the hotel manager, an African woman. And she said she shot him because he had a young woman that he had captured and was holding hostage. And the young woman testified to that. The African manager testified to that. And there's several other witnesses. that testified to that. Now, I'm not passing any judgment on Sam Cooke. I think he was a great singer. But my point is that they didn't say that in the credits in that movie. And then when they got to Malcolm X, they gave a quote by Malcolm. Look at the movie if you don't believe me. And then they say he was assassinated 2 days later. So the inference is that if you're like this guy, this is what will happen to you. But Sam Cooke was killed the same way 2 months earlier than Malcolm for doing nothing that had any semblance of dignity as Malcolm lived his life that caused him to be killed. But yet they didn't even see the necessity to mention that to you because they know most of us won't research and we don't even think about it. And so we'll just accept their message that this militant man, this activist man, this organizational man, if you do that, this is what will happen to you. That's their messaging to us, you all. And it's very problematic when we view Hollywood as just entertainment. Well, it's just entertainment. It's not history. It's just entertainment. Well, that's true on a surface level. But if you dig deeper, the problem is that we don't study our own history. We do not study our own history. So if we don't study our own history and they're showing us a movie or a TV show about our historical figures, there is no way you're ever going to convince me, because I didn't fall in with the rain yesterday, that you're not going to be influenced to think that what they're portraying is actually what happened. You cannot stop that from happening. The only way you can prevent that is if you have an independent analysis to contrast what they're portraying to you. If you don't have that, you're going to be influenced by what they're portraying to you. So this is why people are being influenced to accept these images, because the corporate world doesn't want you to have a spirit of rebelliousness, because that's not good for their bottom line. They want you to have a spirit of inclusion in the American, British, French, Canadian capitalist systems. They want you to have a spirit of involvement in these capitalist systems, because if you have that, then you will never see the necessity to destroy this system. Instead, you'll just be trying to figure out a way to fit into it. And that's their role, is to promote that message to you. So how does Hollywood connect to counterintelligence? Because these movies and TV shows aren't independently, like I've said, they're funded by corporate forces. They're also funded by intelligence forces who exist to uphold the American capitalist system. You see Dragnet, you see the SWAT show. We all know about this stuff. We all grew up watching it. We saw the remakes, the movies. All of us have done that. That's how thorough their propaganda is. But very few of us understand that if you, and I challenge you to do that, because you can say, well, that's just a Jamu. He's just mad. He's just old and mad. And I don't want that negativity in my life. Well, that's fine. You can believe whatever you want to believe. But if you do the research yourself, just look at an old episode of Dragnet and look at the closing credits. And when you do that, you'll see that the Federal Bureau of Investigation underwrote that program. When you watch the old original SWAT series, when you do that, what you'll see is the Federal Bureau of Investigation underwrote that program. Not only did they underwrite them, they came to the Hollywood TV studios with the idea to produce those programs in the first place. And the reason why they did that is because there were 300 cities that burned because we were fed up with American capitalism in the late 1960s. And they had assassinated the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, and we were done. We were ready to burn this country to the ground. And so they had the idea, we have to reshape the image of police. And so that's why they came up with Dragnet. That's why they came up with Adam 12. That's why they came up. There were no police shows before that other than the Untouchables. But after that, police shows are everywhere. They're still everywhere. And you watch them, you see them. These rappers make songs denouncing the police, and then 5 years later, they're playing the police. So that's how consistent the propaganda is. Dr. Dre can F the police with NWA, and then he's playing the police in Training Day. Ice-T can make a song, Cop Killer, and then he's playing the police on whatever that I don't watch TV. I know he's on there, whatever that Law and Order, whatever it is. So this is how strong their propaganda is, y'all. Y'all playing around. You're playing games. These people aren't playing with you. They're serious with what they're doing. So this is what they do. And the SWAT show, this is an utter disgrace, because Special Weapons and Tactic Team was created by the LA Police Force, LA Police Department, LAPD, specifically in 1968-69 to go up against the Black Panther Party. That's why you check the record. The first time the SWAT team appeared was on December 8th, 1969, when the LAPD raided the Black Panther Party's office on Central Avenue in Los Angeles and shot up the place. And our people in that office successfully defended the office that day. And the SWAT team came out and the news caught it live. And every police force in this country imitates the LAPD. So not long after that, every police force in the country had a SWAT team. And they came with the TV show with LL Cool J in the movie later on. And a lot of us look at it like, oh, I love SWAT. SWAT is so cool. We think like little children sometimes. We think like little children. There's no other way to say it. I'm sorry if that hurts. I'm not sorry. You should hurt your feelings, because we got to grow up and get better, you all. We can't be so easily manipulated the way we are. So the FBI, CIA invests millions of dollars in the Hollywood productions. The National Basketball Association, National Football League, Major League Baseball, Major League Soccer, National Hockey League, the military invests millions. That's why they have all that flag nonsense at the beginning of the games and their so-called national anthem. That's where that comes from. The military pays for that. And you stand up, put your hand over your heart, and all you're doing is just being manipulated by these people that want you to have some love for this country that has done nothing but disrespect you for 500 years. That's because they pay for that propaganda. That's where that comes about. And it's just so important to understand that this message of de-escalating our militancy, it's originated from these forces that are tasked with maintaining imperialist ideological dominance. That's what they're committed to doing. They have to uphold the corporate agenda of the people who fund their work. And that means upholding imperialist ideology, translation, believing in American exceptionalism, that America is the most important country on earth, and that every other place in the world needs to be a model of American capitalism. That's what they have, an agenda of ensuring at the end of the day that you believe. And even if they do a movie about how we've been oppressed, it's only to say, yeah, you were oppressed, but the government is going to fix that and you're going to be okay. And then we can build this nation, this great nation of capitalism, of profit over people. But you don't got to worry about that, because you're going to get a little piece of that pie and you're going to be okay. And that's what a lot of us believe. A lot of us listening to this believe that. Well, I'll just get a piece of this over here. I can't fix all these problems. I'll just get a piece of this over here and I'll be okay. That's exactly what they want you to believe. That's what their propaganda is designed. You thought of that yourself, but you didn't think of it yourself. That's what they wanted you to believe. That's what Kwame Ture means when he says people don't think in the capitalist system. They just react to stimuli and think they're thinking. That's exactly what he meant. So the other core element of this message is in redirecting people away from militancy and towards petty bourgeoisie objectives. So since the message is out there that Black power stuff's going to get you killed, then steer away from that. Instead, start a corporation, get an idea, start a corporation, pay people minimum wage, become a billionaire, buy a big house, have all these cars, and be a success model. Go there and go to parties at what's that place where Diddy has the Hamptons. Go to the Hamptons, get invited by Diddy to go out there. That's what a lot of us aspire to do. That's our soul. That's our idea of paradise, is to be able to live in those circles. I wouldn't want to even breathe the same air when any of those bottom shoes come. But a lot of you, that's what you want to do, is be up there with them. And that's making it. Well, he just putting it down because he's not there. I wouldn't have anything to do with it. You couldn't pay me enough money, because I have morality, I have dignity, and I know that dignity can never come from acceptance from your slave master. I just don't even know how to live like that. So that's what they want us to believe, that just go into the system, become a part of the system, chime in, be a part of that. Go on MSNBC. Well, now we're going to go to Niggardly Williams on MSNBC. Niggardly, what do you have to say about this? Well, I think, the Republicans, but just do that. And you're doing your share for your people. I mean, that might be enough for some of us, but that'll never be enough for most of us. So the way we combat Hollywood propaganda, it's like Shakur said, we have to tell our history. But the only way we can tell our history is we have to know our history. And the only way we can know our history is we have to study our history. Your enemy is never going to educate you about your history. That has never happened in the history of human civilization, and it never will. That's why you can't name one television show or one movie where we have collectively come together, like where we've come together as African people, we've come together as indigenous people, we've united with each other, and we've overthrown the capitalist system, and we put a socialist system or another system in place. You have never seen a TV show like that. You have never seen a movie talking about that, where we killed white people that were representing this system. In the movie, in the TV show, we killed them, and we didn't have any hesitation about it. And we didn't do it on an individual basis. We did it on a collective basis. Millions of people, and we won. You've never seen anything like that, and you never will. All you'll see is us fitting into the system, being Negroes, Niggardly Williams. Niggardly Williams is running for office. Niggardly Williams is a millionaire. Niggardly Williams is doing this, doing that. That's all you'll ever see from Hollywood as it relates to us. So we have to tell our own story, because that might be your story. Damn, that'll never be my story. My story is we have dignity, and we fight for our liberation by any means necessary. Whatever we have to do to win, that's what we do. Because the people we're fighting against, that's what they do. And it's important for us to talk about our existence and lives in a holistic standpoint, because we're complete human beings. We're not just angry. We're not just sad. We're not just upset. We're happy. We're intellectual. We're all of that. So if you hit us, we have a right to knock the hell out of you. If you want to negotiate with us, we have the right to out-negotiate you. We are complete human beings. And that's how we have to learn how to see ourselves and our history, not in these caricatures that they present to us as entertainment. And then we have the right to believe that we deserve our freedom by any means necessary, just like living human beings. Some of the messages, like Shakur said, have seeped through. And James Brown, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. James Brown was a Republican, so he didn't want to say I'm black and I'm proud. So he had the kids say, if you listen to the song, he says, say it loud. And the children say, I'm black and I'm proud. He didn't want to say that because he didn't want to alienate anybody. But even with that, in the song, he had one of the best lyrics that's ever been in a song. He says in the song, we're like people. We like the birds and the bees, but we rather die on our feet than live on our knees. That is a cold lyric right there. You can't say anything stronger than that. It slipped through by accident, probably. He probably, if he didn't notice, take that out. Take that out. But he didn't do that. So it's in the song. You can go and listen to it today. And so you can hear that. But that's dignity. That's what that statement in the song means. It's a dignified statement because it's true. We have a right to live with dignity. And if you got to live, but you don't have dignity, you're not really living. So some of you out there, some people, well, it's better to do anything than get. I remember when I was a kid and the movie Mandingo was out. My father took me to see it. And in that movie, the African, because I've always had the rebellious spirit of our ancestors in me. And in that movie, even though I was a little kid, that came out in the mid-70s, I was a little kid. In that movie, they hung the rebellious African who was enslaved. And they said, and while they were putting the rope, getting ready to drop the rope, he said, and when you peckerwoods, hang me, kiss my black ass. And I saw that in the movie and I thought, that's what I would want to be able to say in that instance. And when I went to school with my friends, we had all seen the movie. They were like, yeah, but he got killed. And even as a kid, I didn't understand. I'm like, so yeah, but if he had to live, what would that have been? I even understood that as a kid. So I certainly understand it now. Like, I'm gonna claim dignity no matter what the cost, because I don't even want to, the day I don't have that, I don't want to live. And I don't understand anybody that does, because you're not really living. All you're doing is just existing in a shell. You may as well just be a roach, because you know better. In fact, I have more respect for a roach, because at least a roach has no choice in their objective. You had a decision to make and you chose to be a roach. I'm sure if the roach had a choice between being a roach and a human being, they would choose being a human being. So that's a problem. So we have to recognize that, as Shakur said, organization is the only way that we address this. You know, if we had a movement, it doesn't even have to be revolutionary, but if we had a movement, we would be able to organize ourselves not to support these flawed projects until something was produced that really gave dignity to our history and our people. And even if we could just do that little thing, then we could have better products coming out. But we don't even see the necessity to organize on that level to do that. We just spend our money with these people and accept it. I mean, the bar is so low, we're like pigs in filth. We accept anything and even defend it because we don't know any better. And we have to do better. Our future generations deserve us doing better. So Shakur is correct. Get involved. Organization is the key. And the example I just gave you don't have to join our organization. Most of you ain't ready to join our organization. And we don't have time and capacity to deal with your foolishness. So that's not the message that you have to join our organization, but you do have to join some organization working for our people. That's how we turn these problems around. That is the solution. So if you leave with nothing else, please hang on to that message and think about how you can make that kind of contribution, because it's only what we're here to do. It's only what we're supposed to do. It's only what has been given to us to carry that torch and make sure it happens. And it's a good mission. It's a wonderful mission. So let's live up to it and we can correct these things. So thank you for being here. And next Sunday, February 13th, is the day before the so-called Valentine's Day. So whether you celebrate that or not, we're going to be here on Sunday and we're going to talk about revolutionary and healthy love. So we're going to talk about that from the standpoint of what does a healthy relationship look like of love between two people, instead of, you know, some capitalist inspired symbolic ritual on February 14th that's just designed to get you to spend money. That's all it is. That's all they care about. And we just jump right in and we do exactly what they trained us to do. And we don't even think about it beyond that. But we're coming next Sunday, hoping that we can give people some food for thought to think about what that really means. So join us, please, and spread the word. And then come to our shop, buy our clothing, support independent revolutionary African organization. The link is there. You can buy hoodies, t-shirts. There's all kind of wonderful stuff there. You can go to AAPRP-INTL.org, join the All African People's Revolutionary Party. It's the best decision you can make today. And there are a number of people doing that, and we appreciate it. If you don't want to join the APRP, join the I'll Be Glad when he shuts up in 3 minutes organization. And we'll help you build the I'm Glad He Shuts Up in 3 minutes organization, because we stand for organization. And go to abetterworld.me and donate there, where, again, as we said in the beginning, we're raising money for our sibling party in Zimbabwe, the Zimbabwe Movement for Pan-African Socialists. We're not asking for a lot of money in your donation, $5, $10. Just do that and we'll send it. You know, I sent them $100 Thursday. That $100, we're trying to buy revolutionary literature. They want to buy our books from our book list. Authors like Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Touré, Walter Rodney, Frantz Fanon, Amy Jock Garvey, Assata Shakur. Those books are not readily available in Africa by design. The only thing you get over there readily is Huck Finn, because that's what the Christian reactionary mission, start calling mercenaries. That's really what they are, missionaries. That's what they bring over there. So we're trying to raise revolutionary consciousness. So help us do that with our sibling parties. $5, $10, abetterworld.me. We know there's U.S. sanctions against Zimbabwe. We don't give a damn about their sanctions. We're going to get money to our people and we're going to do it. I don't care if if the FBI knocks on my door, it won't be the first time. So make the donation, please, 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 like James Brown said. And hoodcommunist.org, please go there. We have wonderful articles there. We have outstanding material this week. There are wonderful articles by a number of dedicated and positive people in our community. So please check that out. And we have all these wonderful programs here that are AAPRP initiated. Pontula podcast, the AAPRP film series from our comrades just a couple of miles away from me, has started on Tuesday nights, so check that out. The Revolutionary African Women Forward Ever broadcast. And again, our comrades in New Mexico do their weekly newscast Thursdays at 12 noon Mountain Time. They've been doing theirs as long as we've been doing this one. We're going on 98 weeks next week. So check that out. A Guide for Organizing Defense Against White Supremacist, Patriarchal, and Fascist Violence. My book, The Black Agenda Report, is featuring it in their monthly book forum. So check that out. Check out the interview. Buy the book. I'm still working with people. I'm going to continue to do that. People are doing work, working with a group in Pennsylvania, in Texas, working with groups outside of this country. We are organizing, you all. So catch this train, get involved. We can and we will be free. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for stopping by. Spread the word. Forward ever, backwards never. One unified socialist Africa. Patriarchy's got to go. Capitalism, you already know, has got to go. Enjoy the rest of